Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Stargirl Season 2 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 11, Summer School Chapter 11, which I have just finished watching. And this episode delivered big time. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode a lot. Very dark, very emotional, very hair-raising, just completely out there. And this was yet another fantastic follow-up to what has been, in my opinion, even though it's only been a short run for Stargirl, this has been quite possibly the best season that Stargirl has put out. I thoroughly enjoyed season 1, but I think season 2 has probably topped season 1. That's how good it's been. From the dialogue to the writing to the visuals, everything about it has just been excellent. And we are 2 episodes away from season 2 wrapping up, and of course, this review series as well. And this episode, most of it was shot in black and white, so it gave it more of a dark, horror, technicolor sort of cinematic feel to it, and it was just amazing. There wasn't really a lot of action, which isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes good episodes don't really need a lot of action, but this episode was more of a psychological approach as opposed to previous episodes. We've seen in previous episodes the main villain Eclipso bring the hero's worst fears to life and just have them played out before their very eyes. Very similar to what the Scarecrow does with Batman. But in this episode, that was taken to the next level and it was very well done. As we saw at the end of episode 10, which was chapter 10 of Summer School, it appeared that Courtney died, which turned out not to be the case. She was sucked into the dark world just like Cindy was. And in this episode, she's taken back to Blue Valley, but it's not the Blue Valley she knows. It's very different, very dark and twisted, and she basically sees all of the people who have been sucked into Eclipso's world and all the people who've been disappeared over the course of season 2. And as I said, this was thoroughly well done and yet another favourite episode of mine. And I have to say, I've got nothing bad to say about this episode. In fact, I've got nothing bad to say about this season at all. So let's just get straight into it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's talk about episode 11, Summer School, chapter 11. So this episode picks up where we left off at the end of episode 10, and we see Pat and Jenny return with only the cosmic staff, confirming that Courtney is gone, and this of course breaks Barbara's heart. Courtney is in the Shadowlands, which is a black and white world, and she learns that she is not alone, while it is safe to assume this is where Cindy has been all this time, after being sucked into by Eclipso. There are a handful of others posing the question, how many people has Eclipso trapped in the Shadowlands? We then see the family, the Zareks. This is especially shocking for Courtney as they are all dead back home. Joey even tries the same magic trick on Courtney that he did at the beginning of season 2, and he calls her out for lying to him then. When Courtney mentions that this is not real, the patrons of the dinner and at the diner turn on Courtney. She flees, ending up in her high school, and there she runs into Isaac and his mum, who also died. This odd moment is broken up when Cindy attacks Courtney, and this prompts a huge fight. However, Cindy stops when she sees that she can actually cause Courtney to bleed, realizing that this is actually the real one. Before Cindy can explain anything, We see the Dragon King arrive to presumably make her relive some of her trauma, but Cindy won't go through that again and shoves Courtney through the next door. So, what we saw in this episode is each door that Courtney goes into, it takes her back to a period of time and an old memory. But what Eclipso does with these memories is he twists it around and makes it feel really horrible and painful. Here, Cindy explains that this is the Shadowlands. It gave Eclipso life, and it's kind of like a purgatory, showing those trapped here whatever is haunting them. It's also the manifestation of hate from humanity. Cindy claims there is no way out, but Courtney, of course, refuses to give up. After leaving Cindy, Courtney is forced back into the memory of Christmas Eve where her dad left for good. She meets her mother here, and this twisted version of her mum, Barbara, blames Courtney for why she had a poor life, but Cindy pulls her out of this nightmare. While she saved Courtney, Cindy doubts Courtney will survive here because she is too good and refuses to acknowledge that there is darkness in everyone. She also reveals that people's souls are torn apart eventually by their nightmares the longer that they stay here. The two of them then fight over whose fault this whole situation is, and when Courtney calls out Cindy, Cindy reminds her that she was dealt a bad hand with her dad, as she was experimented on like a lab rat by him. While she claims she can take on her dad again and again, the arrival of her mum is too much for her to handle, and when Cindy goes to confront her, two versions of her dad take her away into the darkness, with Courtney going after her. Brilliant stuff this is. But the surprises don't stop there. We then see Courtney does go after and is stuck in a strange part of the Shadowlands, but this time the original Dr. Midnight, who Beth has been communicating with through the goggles, pulls her out of it and confirms he is the real Dr. Midnight. You know, Dr. Midnight, although we haven't actually seen him, we've seen him in a couple of flashbacks. This is actually the first time we've seen him fully in the flesh, and I had a feeling we were going to see him eventually, and he played quite a significant role in this episode. Dr. Midnight explains the Abyss was in the shadows, Land's true form, and he mentions that how his goggles allow him to see what is real and what is not. Without them, he is stuck hearing the voice of his dead daughter. Since Eclipso can feed off darkness, this place is like a feeding ground for him, so Dr. Midnight advises Courtney to hold on to any light in her life. Back home, Dr. Midnight contacts Beth and confirms he is alive with Courtney as well. He also reveals that Jenny should be able to find the Shade, the only one who can open the portal again and bring them home. Now, of course, as we all know, Shade is responsible for Courtney being trapped in the Shadowland, so to have him be the one to get her out makes sense. Meanwhile, Dr. Midnight reveals how time works differently in the Shadowlands, and Beth's contact is the first time he's had hope in a very long time. He also reveals his past with Eclipso and how on the night of his daughter's funeral, the Shade came to him and blamed himself for never doing anything about Eclipso beforehand. Pat and Barbara find the Shade and reveals that Dr. Midnight is alive and well, which the Shade is surprised by. He threatens to kill them if they push him too much, but Barbara challenges him to do so since she doesn't want to live without her daughter Courtney. This prompts the Shade to help, especially since Barbara reminds him so much of his sister. He raises his hand to open the portal inside the cinema with what power he has left, and Courtney and Midnight have to walk towards the light to the exit. But Cindy refuses to go without Courtney. She rushes to get Cindy because time is of the essence. On her way to Cindy, she runs into the child Eclipso, who often appears in a childlike form to torment others, and he plans to show Courtney how she ruined the lives of those close to her. Courtney refuses to believe this, so Eclipso asks her directly how she feels about him. She tells him she hates him for exactly what he's looking for, however, this doesn't work, and she's able to find Cindy. Cindy is on the operating table as the projection of her father preps to experiment on her, while she watches a younger version of herself threaten her mother. After Courtney frees Cindy, she wants to apologize to her mum, who she killed as a child. After this, they make it to the screen in time with Courtney Dr. Midnight and Cindy back in the real world thanks to Shade. The downside to this is that holding the portal for this long eventually kills the Shade and he finally disappears in a black puff of smoke, realizing that he did something good in the end. He will not die in vain if Cindy has anything to say about it, as she is ready to fight alongside the JSA. And that is how we end episode 11, and that wraps up my review. What an episode! Fantastic. Loved it from start to finish. And as I said, this episode didn't have much action, but I didn't care. I just absolutely loved this one so much. And Cindy agreeing to fight alongside the JSA is a twist I thought I would never see. But does this necessarily mean that Cindy is going to become a good guy? Probably not, but for the moment, she's agreed to work alongside the JSA members to defeat Eclipso. And also, now we've got Dr. Midnight on board, I can fully see the original JSA and the new JSA coming together to fight Eclipso and defeat him once and for all. But as I said, this episode was unbelievable. And bring on episode 12. That's all I've got to say. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What did you think of episode 11? Did you enjoy it? What was your thoughts on Dr. Midnight finally appearing in the flesh? What kind of role do you think he will play in the next couple of episodes? And also, what was your thoughts on the Shadowlands being created by Eclipso and playing out some of people's memories and putting weird, dark twists on them? Did you enjoy that? And also, what was your thoughts on the whole episode, or most of it being shot in black and white? Do you think that really adds to the darkness? And also, how exactly do you think Eclipso will be defeated? And also, what do you think of the Shade's final stand actually helping to bring everybody back before giving up his life? Do you think he did a very noble thing and actually came good in the end? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Stargirl Season 2 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 12, which I am really looking forward to, especially with the way this one ended. Should be a fantastic one. Bring it on. That's what I've got to say. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.